Hey everyone, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Now, before we begin tonight's blog, does anyone remember a director named Sam Raimi? Well, I'm sure most of you know about him for his Spider-Man trilogy, along with Oz the Great and Powerful, but a lot of horror fans know Sam Raimi for his Evil Dead trilogy. For those who don't know, Evil Dead is about 5 kids who go to this old cabin in the woods. There, they find an ancient book known as the Necronomicon, or Book of the Dead, along with an archaeologist named Professor Raymond's tape recorder. While they listen to the recordings, it recites passages from the book, which resurrects the evil spirits known as Deadites. And throughout this movie, all sorts of hellish things happen, like one girl gets raped by a tree, another one gets a pencil shoved through her ankle, as well as most of the kids getting possessed. However, unlike most horror movies where it's a girl who's the last remaining survivor, in this franchise, the final survivor is Bruce Campbell's character, Ash Williams. And in my opinion, Ash is a real badass hero while wielding a gun that he calls a boomstick and a chainsaw on his arm. And while the first Evil Dead film was kinda low budgeted in my opinion, I think Evil Dead 2 was a lot better. And the third film, Army of Darkness, was both epic and funny. However, I still have yet to watch the TV series Ash vs. the Evil Dead. Now, to be perfectly honest, guys, I was first introduced to this trilogy way back in 2011 when I watched Raushutsu, aka Danny's, Top 10 Horror Films on Mr. Coates' website. But, sadly, I don't know if that video can be found anymore, because ever since Blip shut down, Danny and several other reviewers I used to watch just disappeared off the face of the earth. Anyway, thanks to a request from Jay's Watch, tonight I'm gonna look into a remake / continuation to the Evil Dead franchise and see how it compares to the past Evil Dead films. Released on April 5th, 2013, the movie is Evil Dead. So, let's get started. David, along with his sister Mia and their friends Eric, Olivia, and Natalie, travel to an isolated cabin that belonged to their parents to spend a couple days together. Mia promises to stop using drugs, and Olivia, who is a nurse, promises to help her. During their stay, they discover a hidden basement with witchcraft and the mysterious Book of the Dead. Unfortunately, Eric reads it aloud and unintentionally summons an evil force known as the Taker of Souls. One by one, Mia, Olivia, Natalie, including Eric, become possessed until only one soul is left intact to fight for survival. So, what are my thoughts? Well, let me describe this movie in 8 simple words. The most terrifying film you will ever experience. Yes, this movie is an absolute nightmare to watch. But, do I enjoy it? Well, yeah. But, only if I want to face my fears. And I do have to thank my sister Sabrina for giving me this movie for my 23rd birthday back in September 2013. But let's move on to Mustang notes. The film was directed by Fede Alvarez, with Evil Dead being his directorial debut. Along with Alvarez, the film was written by Orro and produced by Robert Pattert, Sam Raimi, and Bruce Campbell, the producers of the original trilogy. Now that's pretty cool. Talks for a fourth Evil Dead film began in 2011, with original film actor Bruce Campbell the possibility for a next film in the franchise. The project was officially announced in July 2011, with Ghost House Pictures producing it, with Diablo Cody in the process of revising the script, and Fede Alvarez chosen as the director. Filming took place in March 2012 and wrapped up in May 2012 in New Zealand outside of Auckland, lasting about a month. Also to note, Sam Raimi's 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88 can be seen in an opening scene with David and Mia as they arrive at the cabin. The 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88 has appeared in almost all the movies that Raimi has been involved with over his career. Plus, after Evil Dead made its theatrical release, it grossed about, $97 million worldwide against a $17 million budget, which sounds pretty successful in my opinion. Now, let's talk about the movie's atmosphere. Since this movie takes place in an old cabin in the woods, the atmosphere in this movie is not only bone-chilling, but it can also be very brutally haunting due to the weather becoming foggy, and it gets very thought-provoking when it rains, causing the river to swell and flood the road, preventing our main characters from leaving the woods. Plus, the cabin itself may be mysterious, though I do like the many different photographs of David, Mia, and their family and friends, and there's a tool shed next door to said cabin, but the basement underneath is really creepy. Not only does it have the titular Book of the Dead, also known as Nocheron de Monto in the movie, but it also has all sorts of messed up stuff, like barbed wire and dead cats hanging from the ceiling. Also, the Book of the Dead is pretty similar, but very different compared to how it was in the original films. You see, the book has neither the mutilated faces nor the ear on the back. Instead, it is completely made out of human flesh stitched together. The color is now more of a natural flesh leather color with black rope-like stitching all around. The pages inside are stained on the border with blood, along with warnings and annotations scrawled on the pages to remind readers to not read the text out loud, which sounds kind of similar to the Evil Thing book from R.L. Stine's Haunting Hour movie. But, unlike in the first movie, like Winifred's spell book from Disney's Hocus Pocus, the Book of the Dead is unaffected by fire. However, as well as containing passages to summon demons, the book also contains instructions on how to destroy them, as well as clues about their motivations and aims. Also in the movie, there are a few scenes that I found very intense, scary, and thought-provoking. For example, there's the opening prologue where we see an innocent girl who's possessed by a deadite getting burned and shot by her father, the scene where we see Mia getting raped by a tree before getting possessed, and many others that I'll talk about later. But there are a few parts that were recycled from the original film, like the scene where we hear Cheryl Williams' demon voice when the Taker of Souls takes full control over Mia's body, and we do hear Professor Raymond's recording during the end credits, and we get an Ash Williams cameo afterwards. Now, let's move on to the Taker of Souls, aka the Abomination. Now, I know I've already talked about this demon on my top 13 scariest monsters in a live-action film, where it took the #1 spot, but let me describe this creature in a similar way. The Taker of Souls, or Abomination, is an evil spirit who was summoned from the Book of the Dead to possess the living. It has a tendency to hurt itself before eventually attacking its victims, whether being for scare tactics or for mere pleasure. Unlike regular deadites, the Taker is far more zombie-like in behavior and displays less intelligence and is less talkative, but it is extremely aggressive. According to the book, the Taker of Souls must claim 5 souls in order to unleash its abomination form from Tartarus, which also makes blood rain from the sky. To me, this thing is really evil, and it is a really messed up and psychotic villain. Plus, Randall Wilson's acting is really wicked. Also, I really think the part where Mia faces the Abomination by using a chainsaw is really awesome. And now, let's move on to the cast. Let's begin with Mia Allen, played by Jane Levi, whom I've talked about in my blog of monster trucks. To me, while she is possessed for a majority of the movie, I think Mia is very relatable due to her trying to get off her heroin habit, which makes me think back to summer 2003 when I dragged my dad with me to scout camp at Camp Emerald Bay in Catalina to get him off his smoking habit. Plus, Mia can be very superstitious and paranoid at times. In her deadite state, I think Mia does all sorts of messed up stuff, like burning herself with hot boiling water in a shower, beating up her dog Grandpa with a shovel and a household hammer, vomiting a river of blood, and slicing her tongue with a box-cutting knife. Yeesh. But, on the other hand, I think Mia is a real badass while facing the evil Abomination on her own. It's almost like she said, "Alright, no more Miss Nice Girl. It's time to send you back to Tartarus where you belong." Mia's brother David is played by Shiloh Fernandez, who got to be in the 2011 Red Riding Hood movie. In my eyes, I think David is a very responsible person, and he's very caring towards Mia. And even though she does defeat the evil Abomination, David has more of a hero role in this movie, due to him not only trying to find a cure for Mia after she's possessed, but also fighting off the Deadite versions of his friends. I also thought it was very brave, but also very heartbreaking when David sacrificed himself by shooting a gasoline tank, which set the whole cabin in flames. But my favorite scene that David does is put Mia into a live burial in order to save her. Next up we have Eric, played by Lou Taylor Pucci. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Who has been in Southland Tales and AXL. In the movie, Eric is a school teacher and David's childhood friend. Plus, Eric is the one responsible for summoning the Deadites by reading the Book of the Dead's passages out loud while studying it. But, aside from that one big mistake, I think Eric is very studious, responsible, curious, and knowledgeable. Next we come to Olivia, played by Jessica Lucas, who has been in She's the Man, Cloverfield, and the 2014 Pompeii movie. Olivia is a registered nurse who has a background in medicine, and she is very confident in her treatment abilities. She gets possessed after Mia vomits blood on her, and in her Deadite form, she cuts out a chunk of her cheek into what looks like a Glasgow smile, and she tries to kill Eric in the bathroom with a broken piece of glass and a syringe. Now that was a really flipped up scene. And finally, we have David's girlfriend, Natalie, played by Elizabeth Blackmore. To me, Natalie is pretty timid and slightly awkward at first, but eventually, when she is pushed to her limit, she will do anything it takes to stay alive. Natalie becomes possessed when Mia pushes her into a bloody kiss and bites her hand. She tries to stop the possession by amputating her arm with an electric carving knife. But after David patches up her arm, Deadite Natalie shoots herself in the face with a nail gun and attacks Eric and David with said nail gun and a crowbar until both her arms are blown off by a shotgun. And now let's move on to my final words. Overall, Evil Dead 2013 is a really terrifying movie. In fact, not only is it a vast improvement over its 1981 counterpart, but it's a lot scarier than the It remakes. The atmosphere is gloomy and misty, the cabin is rickety and dirty, and a few characters like David and Mia are relatable, while the others are not very memorable in my opinion. But the evil Deadites, the Taker of Souls, and the Abomination are the absolute scariest undead villains that I've ever seen in a horror movie. Plus, this movie has a truckload of messed up scenes that include violence, possession, sexual activity, and witchcraft. But on the other hand, this film does have a few Easter eggs that'll remind folks about the original movie. So, do I recommend this movie? Well, not for people who are under the age of 17, but I would recommend it for folks who are Evil Dead fans, Sam Raimi fans, or horror movie fans. As for my rating, well, I'll give this film a 94% out of 100. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to join me again next time. Mustang Power. Huh? What the heck is going on with my life? Huh? Computer? Computer?